Hey friends, it's Tasha, the Bitchin' Dietitian. I am here to show you that counting carbs does not have to be that hard. So today I am making a black bean soup recipe. This is from one of my favorite websites, skinnytaste.com, and like most websites, it has the nutrition information already on it. This recipe makes 8 servings and they have 45 grams of carbs each. I love to make soup because it's pretty easy and soup freezes well. So if it makes more than you need, you can freeze some of it to eat later. So first I'm gonna put my black beans in my pot. Black beans do have carbs, as do all dried beans and peas. Then I'm gonna add 9 cups of cold water. So this recipe says you can soak the beans overnight to soften them up, or you can bring them to a boil, remove from heat, cover them, and leave them for an hour and let them soften that way. I'm actually gonna skip both of those and I'm just gonna add my veggies and let it start boiling. I do things a little differently than this recipe says. For the beans, it says to quarter a bell pepper, an onion, and some garlic. Bring the beans and these vegetables to a boil, and then turn down the heat and let them simmer for an hour and a half. Then to remove the vegetables, who's that guy? I'm actually gonna chop them all up and let them simmer for an hour and a half. And I'm gonna leave them in there because I'm a dietitian and I think the more vegetables, the merrier. And of course, all my veggie scraps are gonna go in my container to go in my compost pile. Also, I want to chop these vegetables up instead of quartering them, not just because I'm going to leave them in the soup, but because I just really like to chop vegetables. All right, 1 chopped up bell pepper. 1 chopped up onion. I always use purple onions because I love them. Doesn't matter what the recipe calls for, I use purple. 2 cloves of garlic. I go the easy way with garlic that's already minced up. And 3 bay leaves. Now, I'm gonna bring it to a boil and turn down the heat and let it simmer for about an hour and a half, maybe a little longer because it's kind of early afternoon right now and I have plenty of time to let this cook. So while the beans and the vegetables are cooking, I'm gonna chop up the rest of the vegetables that the recipe calls for. Halloween is coming up and I love Day of the Dead, so I have a Day of the Dead wine glass. Alright, so once the beans and the first vegetables have simmered for a while, we're going to put these vegetables in after we saute them. So I'm going to chop these up and have them ready to saute for when the beans are ready. Alright, so next the recipe calls for a 1/2 cup of chopped parsley. I am just going to chop up a lot of this parsley and put it in there because I just like a lot of green stuff in my food. So I'm not going to measure it. All right, so I'll admit this is a lot of parsley, but I'm gonna throw it all in and see how it goes. And parsley does not have carbs. Next, the recipe calls for 2 medium carrots diced. I actually have baby carrots because I'm gonna use them for something else later, specifically to dip in some hummus I have for a snack, carb-free snack. So I'm just gonna pull some of these out of here and dice them up. I think this is probably equal to 2 medium carrots. So I'm gonna go ahead and chop it up. But of course, there are not very many carbs in carrots, so I could add a few more if I wanted. All right, chopped up and into the bowl they go. 1 more bell pepper, no carbs in bell pepper. This time I have a yellow one, and that is only because I bought a 3-pack. And that's the colors I got. Whoa! yellow bell pepper going in the bowl, and 5 cloves of garlic. This is definitely going to keep the vampires away. There's a lot of garlic in here. No carbs in garlic. Half a teaspoon of salt is going in these vegetables. No carbs in salt. And half a teaspoon of pepper. No carbs in pepper. Alright, so I'm kind of going to break all the rules with this recipe. I was going to let the beans and the first set of vegetables boil for an hour before I put these in, as the recipe says. But actually, I'm kind of ready to put these in and sit down and relax. So I'm going to saute them like the recipe says, then I'm putting them straight in the pot. Alright, so now I'm about to saute my vegetables. The recipe says a tablespoon of olive oil. That's probably about a tablespoon. There are no carbs in olive oil, so we don't have to count it. Here are these beautiful vegetables that I chopped up. I'll give them a little stir. And then right here in the skillet. Should have let my skillet heat up a little more because we do not hear it sizzling, but that's okay. Alright, so these are going to saute for about 5 or 6 minutes or until they are tender. Looking good, smelling good. Alright, my veggies are looking good, so I'm going to take them off the heat. So again, this recipe says to add all of these vegetables to the soup after this soup has simmered for an hour. But to me, that's one of the beauties of soup. You can throw everything in all at one time and just let it go, and it's good to go. So I'm putting these vegetables in right now. Alright, next the recipe calls for 2 ounces of white wine. If you do not want to use wine, you can just put water in. 1 teaspoon of cumin, 1 teaspoon of oregano, and of course no carbs and spices. And it calls for 1 chicken bouillon cube. I have powder instead, so the equivalent is a teaspoon. Alright, now I'm going to stir it up, cover it back, and let it simmer for as long as I want. Alright, so my beans and my vegetables have been simmering here, covered up for about 2.5 hours, and they smell amazing. So next the recipe says to blend it up with an immersion blender. If you do not have one, you can take a few cups of this soup out and put it in your food processor and blend it up and put it back in here. Honestly, I think if you don't have either one or you don't want to bother with that, you can eat this soup like it is. It's not really a soup consistency, it's kind of more like just black beans, but it's still delicious. Whoa. So remember, this recipe makes 8 servings, and each serving has 45 grams of carbs. Make sure you check with your diabetes educator to figure out how many carbs you should be eating at each meal. So here it is. Here's the finished product. It looks great and it smells great. You can garnish this with whatever you like. You could use some cilantro, some sour cream, avocado, chopped up onions, whatever makes you happy. Now it's time for the ultimate test. Let's see what Petey thinks. All right, Petey's ready. Oh, wow, Pete.
So good.
I can tell you like it.
I don't know what magic you did, but it's really good. I love these videos. I get a free lunch or something.
All right, it's official. Petey loves it, and I hope you do too. See you next time.